What's going on, everybody? Here today we've started part 2 now. If you followed us on part 1, we went through how to cut this window out with a Dremel, and on this part we're going to be flipping it over and we're going to be installing the plexiglass. Just a quick little thing, you'll need some plexiglass. I've got a big old sheet of it. And you'll need a special tool as well. I can't quite remember what this thing is actually called, but as you can see, it's got kind of an odd shaped blade on it, and that's called, I think it's actually called a plexiglass scorer. Again, can't really remember though, it's been so long since I bought it. So what we're going to do is also you need some sticky foam, double-sided foam tape, and that's going to be for actually, obviously, attaching everything. I've got a couple rolls here. Anything will do. I use the foam tape because it tends to have a much better hold. Tends to be easier to work with than glue. I mean, you could glue it, but or hot glue it, but I just find that kind of unreliable. The foam sticky tape can handle the hot temperatures a lot better, so that's why I use it. Alright, so we're going to get this out of the way, and we're going to get our plexiglass up on the table here. Well, this thing's kind of big. Let me move some more things. Now, most of the time these plexiglass sheets will have two little pieces on one on each side, basically, and you can peel it off. I would leave that on. Don't peel that off until right before you go to install it. That helps protect it as you're cutting it and sliding it around. It prevents it from getting scratches and stuff, because it does scratch pretty easy. So we've got our scorer. I've also got a tape measurer. You can do this all kinds of other ways, but I'm going to do it that way just to be exact. All we're going to do is we're really just getting a basic size. And if you follow the first tutorial, your windows could be a little bit different of a size than this. Just depends on how you ended up cutting it. So it looks like I got the actual window size is 3 1/4 that way. And it's about 4 inches going that way. Now the thing is, you'll need it a little bit bigger than that, because obviously it needs to go outside of that. It needs to be able to extend into this area. So I'm going to actually cut it 4 inches by about, we'll do 4 by 5, and then we'll cut it out and shape it correctly. Another way you could do it is you could just lay this on top and then trace a hole in it with something. And that's not bad, but you have to remember that you can't cut it right on the line. You have to make it bigger than the line. And that is how I'm going to do it today. And that's another good reason to leave that little clear plastic shrink coating. I don't really know what it's called, but whatever it's called, that's another good reason to leave it on there. So, if I can find my marker that I just had 2 seconds ago. What we're going to do is we're going to mark it up. We're going to just take our pen out. I guess I'm going to have to use a pen because my markers just went MIA. We're just going to take this, and seriously, we're just going to trace it. Hopefully that's, yeah, okay, so that is showing up on there, good. And a cool way to do it is just use up as little as you can, especially for me because I use a lot of plexiglass. And so try to find ways to just get extra pieces in there. And this doesn't have to be exact because, like I said, well, actually that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to scratch that one out because I need more room for those. So I'll probably just go ahead and trace these down this way. So, because of this type of knife, it's not exactly a science, and it's really like a scorer. You use this end underneath and you drag it across, and that's how it cuts it. And what you do is you just continuously do that over and over and over again. So, let's see, make sure you can see. Here, we'll move the camera just a little bit. Alright, so now remember we traced it, but it's got to be bigger. So I'm just going to go about like this. I'm just going to start scoring it. Now another, if this is your first time, I just want to say this, another good way would be to just score it all the way down. In fact, you know what? That's what we'll do. Because I'm assuming most of you haven't done this before. So I'm just going to take it and I'm going to score it all the way down. Sorry to change it up on you last minute. It'll make it easier to handle doing it this way. And you'll end up having less cuts. Now I'll end up using a little bit more, but since we're showing you guys how to do this for the first time, it's probably just better. Now remember, you're probably going to have a piece of plexiglass also that's more square. You know, it's more like here. So really it's just about what kind of size you have here. Okay, now I got the basic outline. Now this is you do have to be careful, alright? Because this stuff is a pain and you can crack it. So after you've scored it 3 or 4 times, what you do is you bend it back and forth and back and forth. Right here on this line, I'm just going to bend it. See, it's cracked it just a little bit right there, but it's alright. And this side had already started to separate. So that bending back and forth is what's going to get it apart. Now on this bigger line, I'm going to want to score it 2 or 3 extra times. And I'm really putting a pretty good amount of pressure on this too. Okay, well, that should be deep enough. Oh yeah, separating real nicely there. And you can see that all I was really doing was just bending it. Now, this plastic on the other side is going to be hard though, so I'm going to flip it. And I may have to use that knife just to kind of like cut this plastic, because obviously it's not going to just break. It's flexible plastic. Trying to tear as much of it as I can without taking it off of the rest of it. Okay. Now I've got that separated. I'll make it easier to handle. And then really what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of cut each one. Right here, right here, and right here. And then we're going to go back and put it inside the console. And if we have to take some little pieces off, that's what we'll do. See if that's enough. Not quite. There we go. Now, as you can see, that's one of the pieces for the windows. There's number 2. And as you notice, see if I can get this a little bit closer for you. I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch gap. It might be too much, might not be enough. We won't know that until we put each one inside, but it's a good start. I mean, you could be more exact than this, but I mean, all this is about, you know, the play and give and take and everything. So the best part about doing a plexiglass is that it doesn't have to be exact, because you're not going to see what's underneath anyways. Alright, so there's those 4. Let me get my case back out here. Go ahead and flip it over. Now, we're just going to take each one. The original drawing, man, that's really hard to see on the camera. I hope it's going to pick up better on the computer. But that's the original. Alright, we're going to get it in here. Now, obviously, that's too big. So we're going to cut right here. And then we're going to trim some more off right here. Okay, and then trim a little bit more off here. It's probably hard to see where I'm cutting against these lines, especially against this black mat I use, but it's just around those lines that we cut earlier. Okay, now this should fit. If not, we can make some more adjustments. It's no big deal. Yeah, it's still just a little bit big. Probably trim a little bit more right there. Now, when you're just trimming like a tiny little bit off like that, you don't want to try to bend it. It's going to be too hard, and it's actually going to be too easy to end up bending it right in the middle and cracking it. So, your best bet is to use some pliers and just kind of go down and slowly separate it like that. And that's pretty much going to be it right there for that window. It fits in there. It's not pretty underneath, but again, you're not looking at it underneath, you're looking at it right there. I mean, you'll never know that the lines aren't straight. Okay, sorry about that. I lost the camera for a second. You probably saw it cut off all of a sudden. I accidentally knocked over the little tripod thing. Okay, so we got that one done, and I feel like you've got the gist of how it works. So I am going to do the rest of these off camera, so I will be back shortly. Alright everybody, as you can see, I've got it all worked in. Now I did want to add one more thing. On this window right here, the post for the case screw was really close. So what I actually ended up doing was taking the Dremel tool and using the sanding attachment and just sanding it in just a little bit, because that was just too close for comfort, and I wouldn't have been able to get it in there to fill the whole window. So I'm assuming you probably used the Dremel to cut this out and maybe even watch the first segment. And if that's the case, you can use exactly what I know you've already got if you run into problems with those posts. Now we're going to move on to just getting these things installed and attached, and that's not too difficult. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lift this thing up, and we're going to make sure and peel that plastic layer off. We don't want to attach that while it's still on there. And then we're going to use our sticky tape, and we're just going to start cutting little pieces of it. You don't have a lot of room, so it's honestly easier just to go like this. Just start, well, sticking to my scissors, ain't it? Just cut it that way. So it's a little thin strip. We're just gonna put it on there. Well, that first part is not sticky. Wow, none of this right here is sticky. Let me get this other roll. Yeah, that's much better. Okay. So we're just gonna, I'm just gonna trim a bunch of them. Just boom, boom, boom. Just go ahead and get you a bunch of them cut. And then we're gonna bring our case in here and just put them all around. Just, you don't have to put a solid line, but you do want enough that it'll hold it correctly. I'm pretty happy with that. Now we're going to peel the backers off. Alright, now just make sure you're putting it on the right way and you're not putting it on the way that still has the plastic cover on it. Now we're just going to push it down in all the areas where there is some tape. Don't push too hard, but just enough so you know it's sticking on there. And then go ahead and peel that off, and there you go. And that may not look too pretty and kind of jagged around here, but when you flip it over, it looks perfect and you can't even tell. Alright, now I'm going to do the rest of them off video. There's really nothing else to it anyways. Just doing that right there is really all you have to do to finish this part. The third part, we're going to start getting into some of the soldering and LED lights. One other thing I would like to add, I did say this in my first part. If this looks a little too difficult, or if it's not very practical for you to get a Dremel tool just for one case mod, I do offer these little cases pre-cut and already with the plexiglass inside of them. I don't know if that would be easier for you. You'll probably see an annotation popping up right now, or you can look down in the video description and I'll post a link there. Trying to make sure I didn't forget anything here, but I think that's it. So hopefully you'll stick around for our third part. I believe the next part will probably go ahead and work on the power eject board and changing the LED colors on that. So anyways, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys.